Well, we're on day 4 of Nintendo Switch 2 being out, and of course we got a bunch of news, updates, and even some tech tips for you guys in regards to your Switch 2 in case you happen to be having an issue where your battery is not lasting as long as you expect it to. Now remember, the battery is rated for at minimum 2 hours, and if you are getting less than 2 hours, you're really going to want to pay attention to the tech tip I have for you today, because this should fix all of your issues. Also, there's another battery issue, and both are related to the same issue that lithium ion batteries tend to have. And if you already know the tip, I get it. That's cool. You're more up to date than a general consumer. But we have a lot of really cool stories in here for you today, including one about how you can make the Gamecube NSO app actually start up with the GameCube starting screen. That's right, the iconic starting screen, and so much more. So before we dive in, I want to remind you we are giving away 5 copies of Donkey Kong Bonanza. In order to enter that giveaway, all you have to do is go down into the pinned comment and or the link in the description. I wish everybody luck. You do have to be 18 or older to enter, and that giveaway is happening in July, right? It comes out July 17th, so we're looking to do this around the first week of July. All right, that being said, let's go ahead and dive into this first one, and we get this tip actually from SpawnWave, and great channel, great content, and he has a nice little tip for you here to get the GameCube screen going. So let's go ahead and listen to what John from SpawnWave has to say about the GameCube.
So there was something about the GameCube app that was a little disappointing, and that has to do with the fact that there was no GameCube startup animation, which is iconic at this point. However, it looks like Nintendo hid that in the menu with a specific button press. So in this case, I'm going to open it so you can see how it normally would be, where it'll just launch just like this with the GameCube, and then you have your games, right? Well, if we go back here, I'm going to close this, and when you open it, if you then push the analog stick in any direction and just hold it, you get that iconic menu startup. And then it goes to your games. So kind of a fun little thing that Nintendo at least hid in there.
So there you guys go. That's really cool. Like, I'm really glad Nintendo left it in there as a little Easter egg that you could just, sometimes even accidentally find. Now, one of the things that we do need to talk about in regards to Switch 2 has to deal with the fact that there's no streaming apps right now, right? There's no YouTube, there's no Crunchyroll. None of the actual video streaming apps work. And there's been some concern that maybe Nintendo just wouldn't allow any of them. After all, they never worked out deals with Amazon, Netflix, or others. And they may not work out deals for those either on Switch 2, right? We might not get Disney Plus or Paramount or any of that stuff. And for most people, look, we have a billion ways to watch this stuff, so it's not that big of a deal. But for some, it is a added convenience, especially that YouTube app, because so many people like to go to YouTube to look up guides for games they're playing. So it's really convenient to kind of go to YouTube, watch something, go back to your game, etc., especially if you don't want to get your phone out or your phone happens to be charging. Well, we have some good news about YouTube. YouTube confirms the app will come to Nintendo Switch 2. So we go down here and we see this comment made by Team YouTube to this person, Amir, saying, we need a YouTube app for Switch 2. And YouTube responds and says, we're working with Nintendo to make YouTube available on the Switch 2 soon. For a list of devices YouTube's available on, head over to here. We don't really need to see that list. It's pretty much everything. But the point is, yes, YouTube is aware it doesn't work on Switch 2, and they are working directly with Nintendo. So for those of you that like to watch me and my live streams, surprisingly, there's a lot of you guys out there that like to watch my live streams via YouTube on there. Well, guess what? You're going to be pretty satisfied that that's going to be updated. I would assume before the end of the month. I assume it needs a whole new app, or the app just needs some updates specifically for Switch 2, whatever. Now, one thing that they didn't really seem to improve on Switch 2 was the fact that you have 30-second windows of recording. Those 30-second windows of recording don't seem to be adequate for most people, but they did actually improve the actual quality of those recordings. And that's important to note as we look at this story here. So it says Switch 2 screen recording is now 1080p and 30 FPS. Why we can't get 60, I don't know. But when playing back a screen capture, I noticed the quality is significantly better on Switch 1. The recording quality is 1080p at 30 FPS with a bitrate of 9,000 kilobytes per second. For reference, Switch 1 screen recording were capped at 720p, 30 FPS, and 4380, so 4,380 kilobytes per second bit rate. So Switch 2 sees more than a 2x improvement, at least in terms of the bit rate. I do wish there was an option for 1080p 60, but this is really good still. Besides, you don't see the difference in frame rate that much when you're watching a video, which is true. You'll see a much bigger difference gameplay wise than watching a video. But I will say in Nintendo Switch Welcome Tour, well, let me just say something about Welcome Tour. They had this 60 FPS versus 120 FPS thing, and I could tell the difference, and I 100%ed it the first time through. I actually was surprised I could tell the difference. It's very slight. I don't think it's like game-changing, but it's still there and still something that we need to pay attention to. But it's nice just to have that 1080p increase in quality. Now, one thing that we now have confirmed, and I should have confirmed this back on launch day, but I just didn't happen to have a keyboard on me that could wire in, was, hey, the Cyberpunk 2077 support mouse and keyboard. I showed that it supported mouse mode, but mouse mode with single Joy-Con really wasn't viable because you didn't have a jump button anymore and you couldn't crouch, two things that you need to do in Cyberpunk. Well, come over here and say PSA Cyberpunk supports keyboard and mouse controls, and I did now verify this. Here you go. This is an actual screenshot from Switch 2, and you're seeing the full mouse controls here. I'm sorry, the keyboard controls. And yes, I already know that it fully supports mouse mode. I think we're going to see this in a lot more games supporting full keyboard and mouse. The mouse controls have now launched in Fortnite. I have not tested that yet. I'm very curious in Fortnite if they actually ended up putting keyboard controls in as well, because if they did, that's really fun for me. I like playing with mouse and keyboard in Fortnite. Mouse mode's already really, really great. And I don't know if independent mouses work with Fortnite. I literally just haven't booted it up since the update dropped yesterday. But stay tuned. We'll update you on that when we get more information. Now, one issue that's been cropping up with the Nintendo Switch 2 is reports like this. Switch 2 battery reportedly lasting under 2 hours. How is yours holding up? And as you go down here, you see, all these reports. I'm having a great time with Switch 2 so far. I love Mario Kart World and other games I'm playing. They look great. The only negative thing I noticed is the battery drains considerably faster compared to the Switch in handheld mode, especially playing a game like Mario Kart World. And so, yeah, you got battery drain is happening in sleep mode. And all of this stuff. So there's just a lot of complaints about the battery, right? The battery life. And while the battery life is rated to be slower than Switch and stuff like that, it's only rated to be slower by like a half hour on the low end. You should not be getting only 2 hours of battery life, or really less than 2 hours in most games. So I actually have a tech tip for you guys, because I happen to know exactly what's happening, and this isn't the only battery issue happening. We're also seeing batteries start to bulge. I'm going to read my tech tip off because I think it's better just to show that, hey, I'm already talking about this because I already know what the hell is going on. Battery tip for Switch 2. If you find your battery is consistently draining to 0 in less than 2 hours, you need to do some battery retraining. What is this? Well, the system you got likely has been sitting in a warehouse for 6+ months. Not all launch units were, but many were. Lithium-ion batteries get kind of messed up when they sit there that long unused. First off, if you have any battery bulge, and battery bulge, by the way, guys, is when you look at the back of your system, if you wipe your hand across it, if you feel anything that isn't flat, like if you feel any sort of bulge, you have battery bulge, you need to contact Nintendo immediately. I swear, that is a fire hazard. Contact them immediately. They will fix it for free. It's covered under warranty. They'll even cover shipping. They don't want people, having their Switch 2s light on fire. Anyways, that's a completely separate issue, but it's related to batteries just sitting there unused for 6 months. It's very common with lithium-ion batteries. All right, but let's talk about the battery drain. It causes the system to misread the battery charge and think it's at 100% or 90% if you turn down that setting without it actually being there. First off, turn off the 90% setting, then play your Switch 2 all the way until it dies. Then let it charge back up untouched. Don't turn it on at all to 100%. That's right, 100%, not 90, 100. Do this another couple of times. You do this about 3 times. Congrats, you have retrained your battery and system, and now you should be getting the rated battery hours of the platform. This is a well-known thing with lithium-ion batteries, and even I had to do this with my new laptop earlier this year because the battery died in less than an hour browsing the net. Once I retrained it, it now gets 6+ hours. That is the end of Prime Tech Tips today. And yes, again, this is a well-known issue with lithium-ion batteries. They have, caveats, and this is one of those caveats that you need to pay attention to. And we have one other thing we want to go over today. Just quickly, we got the Xbox Showcase and a big live stream tonight to happen. But what about the MIG switch, right? The MIG switch. People have been worried that, hey, if you have the MIG switch, you put it in Switch 2, will it brick your system? Well, it turns out, based on SpawnWave's findings, the answer is no. But your MIG switch is useless at present on Switch 2. Let's go over here to this video. So he made this whole video about, does it brick it, does it brick it? The answer is no, but it has this weird behavior. So let's go to where he actually inserts it here. So as you watch him here, he's going to sit here and he's going to put the MIG switch into his Switch 2. Now, yeah, he's taking a risk here. Maybe that story was true about it bricking. It's not true, but watch. He puts it in and he pushes it down and a game does appear on the screen. Now he tries to get the games to cycle, but it doesn't really work at cycling. You don't know how you cycle the MIG switch. You take it in, push it back in, take it in, push it back in, and that's how you get it to cycle. Now, he does get it to kind of work a little bit later, but there's something more interesting here besides tricking it into cycling sometimes. It's the fact that the games are unplayable. The Switch 2 recognizes something's not right. So he's going to go to start software without downloading the update, and here he goes to user, and here we come, error screen coming up, could not start the software. And this happens consistently. You'll see him put it back into the Switch OLED, showing that it still works on the Switch OLED, although it was having an issue cycling as well on Switch OLED after he put it into the Switch 2. So clearly something happened to the MIG switch when it got put into the Switch 2, because it started to affect the cycling even on Switch OLED, but the games did still load. The games actually didn't load, my bad. If I remember right, he tried starting it without downloading. Let's play here. It wouldn't let him do it. It literally wouldn't let him even start it without downloading. It forced him to download an update that he used to not have to do. So he does download that update, and then the game loads, right? So he closes it. He takes it out. He brings it back to the Switch 2. Still can't get the game to work, right? It just doesn't work. So, he goes to download the update, which what's crazy about this is even after the update's downloaded, because he said, well, I downloaded the update on Switch 1, so it worked after that. So maybe it'll work on Switch 2 after an update. And the answer is no, it does not work. It does not work on Switch 2, even with the update. Switch 2 is not allowing MIG switch to function on Switch 2. So Nintendo obviously probably owns a MIG switch, figured out how it works, and figured out a way that it can make it not function on Switch 2. And he does, as you see here, start getting it to work. He's got to push it in and out a bunch of stuff. This is after he put it back in the Switch OLED. Then he put it back into the Switch, and he was able to get games to kind of come in. And just to make sure it wasn't a one-game thing, he tries to load Wild Gun here, and you're going to see the same issue crop up. So no, the MIG switch does not function. It does not work on Switch 2. Nintendo did find a way to block it. However, it doesn't brick your system. That's kind of the bigger takeaway. There's no system bricking here. It's just, it doesn't work on Switch 2. Now, will an update come to MIG switch in the future that allows it to work? Will someone create some code base that allows it to work? Or maybe there's something at a hardware level that Nintendo is able to recognize with it to block it from working. Either way, the story about it bricking your system is untrue. That entire story was untrue. I already issued an apology and a correction on that front. And it does look like, for all the fear about Nintendo bricking systems for modding, we talked about in our last video that someone did successfully run a ROP mod on their system, and then they factory reset and the system still worked. Nintendo did not brick their system. It looks like that policy that's been around since Wii is the same policy as always. The person, when he did the ROP mod, didn't connect to Nintendo's servers. He factory reset it before he did that. And guess what? Nintendo was none the wiser and didn't brick his system. It turns out, no, Nintendo's not just going to brick your system for modifying it. No, that's not how it works. If you modify it, then connect to their servers, yes, pretty simple. This is exactly how it's been since Wii. No, folks, the fear-mongering over Nintendo bricking your system, you don't own it. That's just a bunch of BS. Nintendo is basically just trying to protect their users and their servers from getting hacked by not allowing modified systems to, attach to it. And if you attach to it, they're going to brick your system. This is well known. We've known this since the Wii days. This is nothing new. The modding community's fine. Everything's fine. Even the MIG switch isn't bricking anything. Yeah, no problems. So there you guys go. It's just nice to have that, in the background of your mind that, hey, sometimes we fearmonger over things we really don't need to be afraid of. All right. That being said, folks, I am Nathaniel Robochance from Nintendo Prime. I got to get going, get this video up because we have the Xbox Showcase to stream today. Hope to see all of you guys there because guess what? I'm expecting Call of Duty to be announced today for Switch 2 and maybe even other Microsoft games get Switch 2 logos today. Can't wait to see. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next video.